Record to declare. Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Mary Lindsay Wilson with the Lone Star Dowsers, and we have a wonderful guest tonight, Alan Handelsman. And Alan is are you from Phoenix or you just live in Phoenix?
I've been here a long time. So
Okay.
I grew up in Philadelphia.
Okay, so yes. And Alan's going to talk to us tonight about how to work less and achieve more and getting out of our own way. So he believes that in dowsing and in life that we achieve more when we're not fighting ourselves. When we're in harmony with ourselves, we achieve more and are more effective. The good news is he doesn't believe that it's as hard as we've been making it. So tonight, Alan's going to help us take a new look at what we've been fighting for and how we've been fighting and tools to help with that. And a little bit about Alan. He's a professional musician and he has been for 30 years. Now, this is where I get to ask, are you a flautist or a flutist?
I'm a flute player.
He is a flute player. Yes. There we go.
So luckily that term isn't on the check. It's just numbers on the check and my name. So it doesn't really matter.
Got it. And he's been working as a hypnotherapist for over 22 years, which is an interesting combination. He's been working with energy for, I'm not even going to say how long, a long time. And he's been associated with dowsing for the last 24 years. And he doesn't want you to believe that he's over 104 years old, but he has been a busy guy. So Alan does presentations all over the U.S. He's going to be at the West Coast Dowsers Conference coming up this summer. And he's done presentations in Canada and England and Norway and Switzerland, Australia, and New Jersey. So anyway, without further ado, welcome, Alan. And we are thrilled that you're here.
Thank you. It's good to be here. It was a natural progression from musician to hypnotherapist because as a musician, I was putting people to sleep right and left. So now I just have less to carry to perform that function. If you would like to turn on your videos, that would be great. So I can see you.
You guys want to see him?
If you want to be seen, this is your chance. Okay.
Sometimes it's distracting for people, but yes. Good. All right.
Okay. Well, I don't care if they watch themselves. That's what I do. I will also be at the ORI, Ozark Research Institute Power of Thought School in September. So you can check that out. So I was just watching a program and it seems like the message that we get all the time is to work harder. And that we don't deserve it if we haven't worked for it. So I would like to offer some balance to that because I think balance is really important in every area of life. And I think that what happens is when we are given gifts in life, we tend not to appreciate it. And if we haven't worked for it, then we don't feel like we deserve it. And since we always feel like we could have worked harder, then we feel like we don't deserve anything. So I would like to, and also sometimes the easiest way, what is it, Occam's razor, the easiest explanation is usually the right one. So maybe the easiest, most direct path to get what you want can be the right one. So, and we've
You mean we might be making it harder and more difficult than it needs to be?
You know, Mary, I'm glad you've got that sarcasm problem licked. Yes, that's exactly what I mean. So we make things harder in a lot of different ways. So what I would like to show you first is the nature of fighting and control. So I have a 4-minute video, and the reason I put it on video is because no one else is with me here and I can't play the game with somebody else that I'd like to play. So it's only 4 minutes. It may take me 12 minutes to find it, but let's see. and hopefully you'll be able to hear it. So this shows you, this is a demonstration of fighting and control. So if you want to get more control and fight less, this is a way that we probably were never taught. Some of us maybe, but not most of us. So you can see that this was quite a while ago.
Can you guys hear? Just give us a thumbs
Put your arms
up.
up like this. Now, I didn't tell you that before you get to hit me, I get to hit you. Oh. My part of the game is to hit you in the arms and knock you over. Okay? Your job is to keep your balance. Feet together. I need all the help I can get. Ready?
Okay.
Here we go. You get another shot at it. Ready?
Oh,
All right,
shoot.
now, come. Hi.
Now you get to do it to him.
That's right. You get to do it to me. Only in the hands.
No fingers up.
My feet are together.
Oh. You're bending your elbows. I see what
No,
I
I'm
did
not.
wrong. You're letting your arms be real relaxed and you're growing your roots.
I haven't been here that long. When I was hitting Julia, who had control? When Julia was hitting me, who had control?
You did.
See, I like this game. Now, Julie said I bent my arms and I grew roots, and I don't want to even talk about what else you said I did. What did I really do to maintain control when Julie was hitting me?
Accept it.
Yeah, too hard to spell. I never know whether it's an A or an E at the end. Something simpler. One word begins with N. Nothing. And I'll bet that most of us have never been told that sometimes doing nothing is a solution to a problem. It's always, how much harder do you have to work?
Oh, wow.
Doing nothing. Let's see if Julia has learned.
Okay. Do nothing.
Let go.
Do nothing.
Put your arms a little further forward. If they're too far back, then let go from here.
Okay.
You're going to get hit.
Okay.
So what? That's better.
Yeah.
Even more. Let him be further forward. It doesn't matter. Because if you start here, there's no place for him to go. Let go. Good. So what? Doesn't matter. Because now the hitting won't have an effect on him. Good. Good job. So we're all taken in. We're all seduced by the feeling of control. But when you feel like you have control, chances are you don't. You're going to be off balance. When you feel like, uh-oh, what's going to happen? And that's the way Julia felt the first time after we explained it. Chances are you're more flexible and you have more options. And notice that before, when I hit her the first couple of times and she went over, she was pretty stressed. But the last time, she was looking forward to it. Because the very same event that caused her stress before is now simply a reminder that she has her power back. And that's ending the fight. I work, when I'm not here, I work as a hypnotherapist, and I help people to end the inner conflict. Because that's what causes the problem. See, the problems in our lives are not caused by the people, the events, the situations, the emotions, but caused by our resistance to all those things. And once you stop resisting, you get your power back.
So
Okay.
that's the bottom line. Stop resisting, huh?
That's it. Yeah. That's everything that I do in, I was going to say in the office I don't have an office anymore. I work over Zoom and by the phone, but everything I do with a client is based on the arm game. So because the problem isn't, people say anger kills. Well, it doesn't. Trying to fight it will cause a lot of problems. So that's the problem, not the anger itself. So somebody once said that if somebody is angry, if you're angry and you hit somebody, that's not expressing anger. That's trying to get rid of it. So the people who are yelling and hitting and abusing, they're not expressing their anger. A friend of mine, an old friend who I haven't seen in quite a while, says, I express my emotions to my husband. I tell him he should do this. Well, that's not expressing emotion, that's giving orders. So once we stop fighting ourselves, then and accepting what is as it is, then things become much easier. I can show you this. If you have a pen or a pencil handy, pick up the pen and pencil and good, and put it in between your fingers and do this. It's pretty, most of us can do it pretty well because we've been on hold. So now you can let it just be there. When you were doing that, you didn't have much control over that, because if I were there, I could just come and take it out of your hands. So what I want you to do is press real hard so that I couldn't come and take it out of your hands. And now that you're pressing real hard, now you feel like you have control over it, except now play the game and you can't. Okay, so when we feel like, okay, I got this, usually we've limited our options. So what we want to do is, sometimes when we feel like, uh-oh, I have no idea what's going to happen, that's when we have more flexibility and more options. And notice that power doesn't come from strength. I've played the arm game with people who are way bigger than I am, and they can't knock me over. Feels great. And I can knock them over because they think that power comes from strength. Now, in relationships, we're not talking about power over others, but power with others, so that you're an equal part in the relationship. And of course, the most important relationship is the one with yourself, so that once we can acknowledge where we are at the moment, then it's easier to get the work done.
Okay, can I ask you a question about the video?
Sure.
So did the lady not get knocked over because she relaxed? I mean, what was her?
No,
She wasn't
and
resisting?
exactly. Now that's what happened. And yes, her arms were more relaxed, but you bring up a great point. Okay. And one of the ways we make things harder for ourselves is to tell ourselves to relax. I never use relax as an instruction. And that's because the word relax, for at least two different reasons, is an alarm word. If we were in the same room and we were doing this and talking, and somebody walked in the door and said, hey, everybody, relax, we know there's something wrong. So it's literally an alarm word. Also, how many people do you know say, I'm really good at relaxing? Most people I know say, I don't know how to relax. I can't relax. So if you give yourself an instruction to do something that you don't feel confident doing, then that increases the stress and the tension. So I would never tell anybody to relax. I will ask them afterward if they're relaxed, because it's a description of what did happen. Make sense?
Mhm.
So what I told the woman to do was just to make believe that her arms were like rubber instead of steel
Oh.
or feathers. And then I'll say, make believe your arms feel like somebody else's feathers. So it's one more level of disengaging. So the term that I use is do nothing, because all she was doing was resisting and tensing. So if you do nothing, you take.
Alan, you froze a little bit.
Okay.
Okay, there we go.
Okay. Okay. I don't know why that is, but we'll see. We'll see what happens as we go. Keep me posted. So so do not tell yourself to relax. Tell yourself to let go or to be loose. I'll give you an example. Okay, let's all do this together. And I'll just trust that either you're doing it or you'll maybe try it later on when nobody's around. If you close your eyes and become aware of a place in your body that maybe is holding a little tension. Maybe it's a knee or a elbow or something, or your neck, your back. Maybe it's giving you some problems. So here's an easy way to introduce relaxation without using the word. Imagine that you can connect your nose and mouth through a tube right to that area that's holding the tension. So if it's in your back, then when you breathe out, you can breathe oxygen into that area. And I know we don't breathe out oxygen, we breathe out carbon dioxide. But since this is our imagination anyway, we can do pretty much anything we want. So imagine it as you breathe out, you're sending oxygen into that area that's holding tension. An image that I use sometimes is a sponge. You can imagine that part of your body is like a hard sponge. And a sponge is hard. It scratches you if you are not too careful. And you can break it in half if you try to bend it. But if you send water into that sponge, the sponge becomes soft, flexible, and it doesn't hurt even to hold it anymore. So breathe into that area that has tension. And that's it. And some of you, if you had maybe some pain even, the pain may have gone away. The tension may have lessened. You may feel a little bit looser. One guy had a problem with his neck, and he was going like this. He said, "I can't move my neck." And then I did a couple things with him. Took about 5 minutes, and I said, "Do you notice a difference?" And he goes, "No." So take a moment and notice. You may notice sometimes it'll only take a few seconds. Other times, if this feels really good, why not do it for 20 minutes? It doesn't matter. Making it feel pretty good. And I'll ask if anybody noticed a change. Good. Thank you, Stacy. And Julie, thank you. So that's how easy it is sometimes to make a change, even a physical change. We think that making physical changes is really a big deal, but there are easier ways to do it than I don't know, living on Advil or whatever it is. I remember a massage therapist said, breathe into the pain, breathe into the discomfort. And I was thinking, what the hell does that mean? So what I did is made it as simple as possible. I just took a tube and breathed into the pain. Imagine that. Imagine taking her word for word, and it worked. So this is a really simple little technique to loosen up without having to relax. Isn't that great? Yeah. And the first thing you need to do that is the pain. One of my least favorite expressions is, it's all good. Because my personal belief is that there's no such thing as good or bad, but if there's such a thing as good, then there's such a thing as bad, which means that it's not all good anymore. And lots of times it's the very same thing that's good and bad at the same time. So instead of labeling it, you can just acknowledge the way that it is. So, and describe it in ways that nobody can argue with. And I worked with a golfer. This is one way of letting go of judgment. I worked with a golfer. Actually went on the golf course, and I never went on a golf course without like a clown on the last hole with the nose and, doing the miniature golf thing. And he hit the ball and I couldn't even see where it went. And after every shot he made, he had 12 different things, complaints. Oh, I hit it too hard. I hit it to the left. I should have done this. I should have done that. Every ball. And what I told him to do, what it occurred to me, is to say something that nobody could argue with. Because everything he said, somebody could argue with. Oh, that was a lousy shot. And his caddy could have said, weren't you here last week? Your shot was 10 times worse. This is an improvement. Or it's better to hit it too far than not far enough, or whatever. So people can argue with a judgment. So I was thinking to myself, what could he say that would be helpful without judgment? And what I came up with is every time he hit a shot, I told him to point to the ball and say, there's the ball. And nobody can argue with that. Okay? And it gives him all the information that he needs. In fact, it's the first thing he needs, because if he doesn't know where the ball is, the next shot's going to be worse. I can guarantee that. So there's the ball. And
Did that improve his game?
I don't know. I assume so. I can't imagine that it hurt, but I've had good success with golfers. I got to tell you one story. I worked with a lawyer who wanted to improve his golf game. And I said, let's do 3 sessions. I said, we'll get it really together and really solid. So he paid me for 3 sessions, and he went out after the first session. And he came back and he had the best round of golf, I think, of his life, at least in 20 years. And was he happy? Did he say, hey, let's get those sessions and maybe I'll hit the pro tour? He said, I want my money back. You charged me for 3. I only needed 1. So that was the costliest success of my life. Actually, I didn't give him his money back. So the case comes up next Thursday. So acknowledging. Think about this. This is this is the only way I'm like Einstein. Other than I can't get my hair exactly the way I want it. The other way that I'm like Einstein is I do thought experiments, which is, imagine that you're sitting with a friend of yours in their home, and there's this big pile of garbage right between you on the living room floor. And you say, hey, why don't you get rid of that garbage? And he says, what garbage? Nothing happens. If he says, what garbage? There's no garbage. Then nothing happens. And the garbage will be there forever. So if we don't acknowledge what we want to change or move, then we have no shot. So the first step is acknowledging what's there. Like what I told the woman in the arm in the video was, you're going to get hit. But those words have a different meaning if it's okay for her to get hit. If it's not okay, then she's going to duck or move or push back and resist in some way. And any time you wish that something was different, your arms are hard. Wishes have a great connotation. But all the stories about getting 3 wishes, it always ends badly. So wishes aren't as wonderful as we think. I wish I were this. I wish I were that. Well, it's like, and saying to a loved one. I worked with a guy, he was friends with a guy who was estranged from his daughter. And she wouldn't let him even come to the house. Occasionally they would meet for dinner. She wouldn't let him come to the house in case her mother came. The parents were divorced. And I said, you can say one of two things. You can say to her, I'm glad you're my daughter. I love you very much. I wish we could be closer. Does that sound good?
Sounds logical. Yeah.
Yeah, logical, but not good. And I'll tell you why in a second. You'll know why in a second. I said, or you can say, you're my daughter. I love you very much. No matter what's happened, no matter what's happening now, and no matter what happens in the future, I'm glad you're my daughter. I love you. You feel the difference?
Yes.
Okay. I wish we'd be closer is saying, I wish you were different. I wish you were acting differently.
Oh,
See?
oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds great. Or how about this? When you hear somebody say, as long as you're happy, I'm happy, which is, it sounds very magnanimous, but it's creepy. It's codependent, and it's making you responsible for somebody else. As long as you're happy, I'm happy. Now you got two people to worry about. We're having enough trouble with one, right? When I work as a hypnotherapist, people think I'm going to get control over them, and I'm not looking for control over anybody else. I've got a full-time job, and sometimes I'm a little behind. See? So if somebody says, as long as you're happy, I'm happy. Well, I don't want two full-time jobs. So to make it easier, getting back to the theme, is acknowledge that what's happening is happening, and the way we are is the way we are at the moment. And then it's easier to change, because my friend went to talked to his daughter on the phone and said some form of, I love you very much, no matter what's happened, no matter what's happening, no matter what happens. My love is eternal. And she said, why don't you come over for dinner? And he said, what about your mom? And she said, you're my father and I want you here. So
Wow.
I teach another class called the Top 10 Reasons God Has a Sense of Humor. And it is, as soon as you accept something exactly the way it is, it changes. So that's the power of acceptance. It doesn't mean you like it. Letting go of judgment is not letting go of preferences. You can still have preferences. And the example that I use is a couple members of my family, one of my parents, just one of my parents. Doesn't matter which one she was. And a brother of mine. Thank you, Mary. And if they didn't like something that was served for dinner, oh, that's disgusting. How can you eat that? That's judgment. There's plenty of things that I don't like to eat. I'm a very picky eater. I can't imagine how much I weigh if I was not picky, but it's scary to think about. But I'm a picky eater. But when I see something that I don't like, I don't say that's disgusting. I say, wow, I don't have the ability to enjoy that the way you do. Why don't you have mine? So that it doesn't matter whether you want it with you or not, because it's not based on good or bad. Wouldn't that be nice to feel that way when somebody's rejecting us? That it has nothing to do with judgment. It's just preference. Because we don't want to, we don't have time for everybody. So it works out really well when some people weed us out, then we weed others out, and we have time for our friends. So let me show you another hard sell for acceptance. Okay, if you take that pen or pencil that you had and put it in front of you, and this pen or pencil is all the negativity, all the anger or the fear or the sadness, whatever you've been fighting in yourself. Okay, put it right out in front of you. And without bringing any part of that pen any closer, how far can you throw it? Now, if you do this, you're bringing part of that pen closer. So you can't like change its position, which means chances are you can't throw it at all. You have no control over it other than to drop it, which means that the next step you take, you trip over it. And
Ooh.
you may also notice that your arm's getting tired. This is the way we live our lives, trying to say, I don't want that. I don't want to deal with that. So now take that pen and put it at your heart. And from here, imagine how far you can throw it. Boy, this is a lot safer doing this in Zoom. Although I don't have my pen collection the way that I used to.
Yeah.
So from when you hold it at your heart, you have the ability to throw it as far as you can in any direction. So that's why acknowledging what's going on. Yeah, I feel anger, I feel sadness, I feel whatever. That's okay. There was a woman who had cancer, and she called me up and we talked for a while. I don't think I ever worked with her, but she had cancer and she wasn't sure she was going to survive. She did. The cancer went into remission and she was scared it was going to happen again. And she said, I'm scared, it's going to come back. And I said, I want you to say that to me twice. And the first time I said to her, you got to be strong. You got to fight this. This isn't going to beat you. You're going to beat the cancer because you're strong and I know you can do it. That sounds good too, right?
Mm-hmm.
For some, it may work. I'm not saying don't do what you've done because sometimes it works. But the next thing I said to her, she said, I have cancer. I'm afraid it's going to come back. I said, of course you're afraid. Of course you're afraid. I'd be more concerned if you weren't afraid in a situation like that. She said, nobody ever said that to me. Nobody ever acknowledged that she was okay feeling the way she was feeling. We're
So it's
taught
like acknowledging what is.
exactly.
Creates releases the resistance.
That's right. And then you have more power, more flexibility, more self-acceptance. Exactly right. It's accepting what is. We're taught that emotions are wrong very early on because they're inconvenient. See, 90% of rules, any rules, this is my theory. Actually, I don't have theories. I have facts. Other people have theories, but I have facts. And that's true for you as well. That 90% of rules are made for the convenience of those who make the rules. And
Anybody want to douse the accuracy of that? Yeah.
you know what? If you come up with 89.7, I'm rounding up. I don't care. I got to tell you,
I'm agreeing.
it's okay. I got to tell you that one time I was in Toronto for a Dowsers conference, and I walked down to the registration desk, and I was a presenter, so I had a table in the vendors room, which is always very near and dear to my heart. And I said, "Where's the vendors room?" And with a smirk on her face, she said, "Dows for it." So I said, "I dows that I should ask you." And the nature of her smirk changed, and she said, "It's over here." So anyway, so 90%, more or less, of rules are made for the convenience of those who make the rules. Check that out. Check it out not only with dowsing, but when you hear the rules, think about who's making them and who benefits. Okay, and just see. It's a nice hobby. So shows of emotion are not convenient for parents. Nobody wants to see somebody else's kid throwing a temper tantrum. It's not a good look for the kid or for the parents. Can't you control your kid? All of that. And also, again, remember that when we teach our kids not to show emotion, we were kids being taught not to show it. So we're carrying on the tradition. So anger is met, and anger is the one of the biggest ones, because when we get angry with the people who are around when we're very young and we first start to feel it, everybody's bigger than we are. And if we show them how angry we are, we think they'll kill us. And sometimes, unfortunately, that's literally true. Or we don't know what this feeling is. And we think if we just let it happen, that it's going to overwhelm us and we'll kill ourselves with that feeling. So anger isn't even a question of life or death anymore. Anger means death. If I let myself experience this anger, I'm going to explode. It's also met with, don't talk to me in that tone of voice. Fear is met with, oh, be a big girl or a big boy, be a grown up. There's nothing to be afraid of. And when we're afraid and we're told there's nothing to be afraid of, we feel angry, stupid, whatever. So that doesn't help much. Sadness is, if you don't stop crying, I'll give you something to cry about. But even joy and enthusiasm is met with, what's all the noise in here? Or keep it down. Or you're just acting silly. Quit, act your age. So we're taught that emotions they're going to get us in trouble one way or another. So we find ways to resist it. Again, and when resistance comes in, that becomes a problem. And then we go to movies to feel emotions. We go to horror movies so we can feel afraid. We watch the news so we can get angry. We do things so that we can feel the emotions in an acceptable way. But feeling the emotion is always acceptable. It's our behavior that can cause us some problems. Like I say, feeling angry is fine. Murder, too much paperwork for everybody involved. It's inappropriate. It doesn't give us what we want. So it's experiencing our emotions differently, with permission to feel it, but they're not truth necessarily, and they're not a call to action. We don't have to cry if we're sad. We don't have to yell and scream if we're angry. But we can acknowledge that this is how, or run away if we're afraid. But this is, but we can experience the emotion itself.
So how do you recommend people have the feeling, but not have the, I guess, reaction?
Think about what you would like to hear. In other words, if you're upset and you say, boy, a part of me is really upset, you would like to hear, of course you are. See? Another thing is to don't think of the emotion at all. Think of the part of you who's holding it. And then everything changes. Imagine that there's a 6-year-old or a 4-year-old or a present time person who's holding that emotion. So if you're angry, maybe you see a 60-year-old jumping up and down. And, we hear, oh, I cleared that. Well, if you have a 6-year-old or you have a friend of yours who's angry and you say, I want you to get out, that's rejection. Now they're even more angry at being rejected. Or clearing, or dealing with. I'm going to deal with my emotions. Well, you want a friend of yours to call you up and say, hey, why don't you come over? I want to deal with you. That doesn't sound so good. That's not respectful. But imagine a friend calling up and saying, I know you're upset. Let's experience this together. Let's be upset together. Or let's talk about it. So it's acknowledging the part of you who's holding the emotion. You don't want to get rid of her. Oh, I wish I didn't feel this. Well, guess what? You're saying to that part, I wish you did not exist. And that's really rough. So being aware of this part of you who's holding it. And maybe she's 4 or he. And you want to say, of course you feel this way. Let's feel this way together. Or let's see what we can do. Let's see what our next step is together.
I'm just thinking about grief. Sometimes to me, I think that's like the the most challenging feeling that there is. And I think a lot of times people don't want to feel grief because they don't think they'll, I don't know, be able to come back normal. Like what do you say in a situation like that?
To me, the way that I define grief is love with no place to put it.
Right.
So you love somebody and all of a sudden they're not there. So it's sort of love with a stopper on it or something, which is why the medical profession has some built-in problems. Because if you go to a doctor and you say, hey, I'm grieving over somebody, they'll give you a prescription. You say, here, take this and you'll feel better. Well, so to me, that means that according to the medical profession, love is a disease. Oh, you don't want to feel that. And the other thing about grief usually much of the time comes with guilt. Either I should have done more, I should have done something different, I should have helped the deceased, and maybe they'd still be here. That happens across the board, no matter how much you've done for somebody. The other thing is we feel guilty for feeling better when somebody has passed. We feel like it's disrespecting the deceased, which I would think most people would say, when I'm gone, have a good time. I told my loved ones, I said, don't feel bad when I'm gone. Don't feel upset. I said, you do enough of that now when I'm here. So try something else. So the way to show to open up to the grief is to remember that the only reason we're feeling grief is because we have love to give. Where can I put it? Well, how about loving the part of you who's grieving? Of course you're upset. I have some weird ideas about death. I think it's natural. I think it's more natural than most people give it credit for. But and I believe it's a natural thing. That being said, when I've experienced it with people close to me, I have to acknowledge that is a freaky thing for somebody to be there and then not be there. It is freaky. It's scary, it's disappointing, it's frustrating, it's all those things. But the only reason we feel grief is because we love that person. So let me show you. Let's do something. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So being overwhelmed, feeling overwhelmed, whether it's by events or emotions, I'm going to use a model, an image, and then we change the image. And we experience that differently. So let me show you what I mean by that. Feeling overwhelmed, maybe it's with grief, with anger, or with whatever. It can be outside problems, whatever. The model that I use is being caught in a storm, in a hurricane, and things are blowing at you from every direction. Again, things usually don't blow from every direction, but that's the way it feels. And we have three ways of being in that storm. The first way is we push things away, like the woman did in the video. And whatever's coming, you try to knock it away to keep it from hitting you. The second way is we duck. The problem with ducking is as we move in one direction to get out of the way of something, we get hit with something else. And when I'm playing the arm game with somebody, you pull their hands back, I got them, because as soon as they put their hands back where they were, I hit them and they go right over. So avoidance is just as much resistance as fighting. The third way is typical control freak behavior. And that is we grab whatever's handy, we smash it down to the ground, and we start nailing it so that it can't move. That's the old, if I get this done by Thursday, then I'll be okay. And of course, Tuesday, 8 things happen and You don't even remember what it was you wanted to get done by Thursday. So let me show you the fourth way of being in the storm. And this is a way to very quickly and easily be able to experience whatever is causing the overwhelm in a totally different way. So if you'd like, close your eyes. If not, you can follow along with your eyes open. And this is why it's possible to do hypnosis over the phone, because you have your eyes closed most of the time anyway. So close your eyes and be in the storm, and things are blowing at you from every direction. I think of the Wizard of Oz with cows and barns and big things, but you can have a bunch of little things. And in this storm, you're pushing and you're ducking and you're nailing and working really hard. And what I'd like you to do is take a couple of steps backward or in any direction and step into the eye of the storm, into the place right in the middle of the storm where it's quiet and you don't get hit. And you may notice that you can breathe. Maybe you were breathing before. And it doesn't matter how you're breathing, but usually we don't even notice if we are or not. So just noticing that you're breathing is a big difference. And you don't have to work. And you can let your arms go. And you don't have to pay much attention to the outside for the moment. And it's quiet and it's peaceful. And you may notice that when we started this, you were less calm and comfortable, and now you're more calm and comfortable, even relaxed. And from the time when you were less comfortable to now when you're more comfortable, nobody apologized, nobody came back, nobody left. I've been saying this for 25 years. Election results weren't changed. You didn't win the lottery. Nothing has changed on the outside that we know of. What changed is your ability to be in your own body right here, right now, and be more comfortable. And maybe the storm has faded away. You're not aware of it. And the reason why it's fading away, to me, is because if you're not going to get hit, that storm is a lot less interesting and fascinating. What's more interesting and fascinating is how calm and peaceful you can allow yourself to be without changing anything. That's the power that we have. You didn't change the storm. We didn't have to stop the storm to know that our own inner peace. And it was there waiting for us. We didn't have to create it. It's always there. Even when we forget. We can leave the house, forget to bring a wallet, and not be able to buy a cup of coffee or a newspaper. Doesn't mean we're poor. It's a reminder of how rich we are. And we'll laugh about it when we get caught. So when we get upset or unpeaceful, it just means we forgot that we have this place of inner peace. And another thing I love about the eye of the storm is you need the storm to find the eye. So the storm isn't keeping you from your own inner peace. It's showing you where to look for it, right in the middle. So that's the power of acknowledging yourself, that you exist. And the storm exists. And you go right to it. If you want to find the door to courage, it's easy to find. Because in big, red, bright neon letters, it says fear. And then we all try to find the shortcut around it. But the shortcut is right through it.
Can you give an example of that?
Yes. I was working with a woman, and I think she was bipolar, but every part of her life was a shambles. She was a mess, financially, professionally, personally, emotionally, physically, everything. And she was a flute student of mine when I was teaching flute students, and she was an adult student. And when I sort of morphed into doing the work that I'm morphing into doing, then she came to my house one time and she said, "How much for an hour?" And I told her, and She was working as a dealer in a casino, so she had plenty of cash. She plunked down twice as much cash. She says, I'm staying 2 hours. I said, okay. And she starts complaining about every part of her life. And even then, this was early on, I had a lot of confidence in what I did, but I'm sitting there listening and I'm thinking, how do I start? What do I do with this person? And I think it was close to an hour, and she was still talking. She was having a great time. And she mentioned an emptiness. And I knew that was the way to go. So I somehow stopped her from talking and I said, you mentioned that there's an emptiness. Where is it? And she points right to her heart. I said, close your eyes and go into the emptiness, fully expecting that she would say, I can't do that. That's too much. But she did. She said, I said, are you inside the emptiness? She said, yes. And I said, tell me what you see. Tell me what you're experiencing. Fully expecting that she'd say, it's too horrible. Let me out of here. And she said, I think it was word for word. She said, well, she said, I can't really see anything in here because it's too bright. And we found the brightness, and it was exactly the place that she was complaining about, the emptiness. And it was in her heart. So the rest of the session was simply hanging out in this place. And it was empty, which is great, because don't we feel like we would like a place for ourselves? See, so a lot of times things that have a bad connotation end up pretty good, and vice versa. So we ended up hanging out in there, and I would let her be by herself and notice that she was comfortable. And then we would bring some people in to visit so that she could be comfortable with other people. But the first step was going right to where the problem was. Again, so whether we bring the pen to our heart or we move toward the pen, works the same way.
So did her life change?
Yes. She it wasn't the end of all her struggles, but I heard from her years later, and she was very she was happy with God and happy with me, and I think it was in that order, but I'll take that. It's not so bad. So yeah, so it can change your life and keep you alive. So, any questions? All right. So, let me show you one more quick, very easy breathing exercise. Do people do breathing exercises?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. And very often they're breathe into the count of 4 and then breathe out to the count of 6 and all of that. And I got to tell you, I hate those. Again, no judgment. Because they probably work, because they've been around a lot longer than I have. But I don't enjoy holding my breath and doing all that. So let me show you the quickest and easiest breathing exercise that I know.
You got a breathing hack for us, huh?
Yeah, breathing hack. This is people call all my methods hacks, which is fine. They end up calling me a hack, but that's something else, I think. So notice the eye of the storm is a wonderful, you can think of it as a hack. You can think of it as a coping mechanism. You can think of it as hypnotic induction. I think of it as the eye of the storm. And I use it whenever it seems appropriate. And also, if you do it wrong, probably you're doing it better. In other words, there are certain things that I do with myself, and then I do them with clients. There's other things which come to me when I'm working with a client, and then I'll go home and try it myself. And I say, hey, what do you know? This thing really works. Well, the first time I did the eye of the storm, there was one woman. I used to say, take 2 steps backward. And she took offense to that. She said, I'm not going to move backward in my life, which I don't know, that she may have trouble driving, but She didn't want to go backward. And I naturally said, step backward, because I thought if it was right in front of her, she would have seen it by now. So it must be, the eye of the storm must be behind us. Otherwise, it would be pretty obvious. So that's when I said backward in any direction, and people still found it. So it doesn't matter. The first time I did the eye of the storm, I didn't go into the eye of the storm. I went to the bottom of the ocean, and it was pretty calm and pretty quiet. Now, human beings can live in the eye of a storm, but they can't live at the bottom of the ocean. So that by doing some inner work, there are things that are possible on the inside that are impossible on the outside. So that's why I do a lot of work on the inside, because we can get a lot done very quickly. So here's the breathing hack. Maybe that'll be my new nickname, the breathing hack. I'm going to ask you to do something, and you do it all the time, every day. And as soon as I ask you to do it, you won't be able to do it. So just do the best you can. And that is breathe normally. Now, as soon as I tell you to do that, we don't normally think about how we're breathing. So do the best you can, breathing normally. And it comes in, it goes out. And when it goes out and you're ready to take a breath in, stop for just a moment and breathe out a little bit more. So when you're at the bottom of the breath and you're going to breathe in, just breathe out a little bit more. And you notice there's more air in there. And as you breathe out, just a little bit more than normal, you may notice that your body settles down, that your shoulders relax and let go. And it gets a little bit quieter inside. The power of a deep breath is not how much you take in, it's how much you let out. I learned that as a professional flute player. I was having problems keeping my sound going until the end of a phrase. And I used to take in as much air as I could and let out as little air as I could, but then I'd have to breathe out before I breathed in. So I realized I wasn't using enough air. So the more natural and normal it is, we never take a full breath in, and we never run out of air before the end of a sentence when we're talking. That's one of the most amazing things in life to me.
I did some Wim Hof training, and I thought that holding your breath was like, where you suck in and you hold, but you don't. You exhale. And then the amount of how long you can hold it is amazing.
Well, let me show everybody a little bit of that, and why breathing, the power of a breath is not how much you take in, it's how much you let out. Take a deep breath in and hold it. And if we could pump air in and out, notice this is not a comfortable place to be. So breathe out and hold it at the bottom. And notice if we could pump air in and out, that this is much more comfortable. Most of us, we grab our loved one, hey, let's go to the meditation meeting or whatever. And we go and they say, take a deep breath and relax. And everybody goes, and then stops. And the person who first time he's there, he says, well, this isn't working for me. I don't feel relaxed. I guess I have to go to India or mountaintop or someplace. But by breathing out, when we go home after a long, hard day, or go in the other room, go on the couch, we don't go, oh, what a day. We go, what a day. We breathe out. Anybody hear the word nirvana?
Yeah.
You know what it means? Literally?
No.
A lot of people say relaxation, heaven, all that stuff. The literal translation of nirvana is blowout. It's not a description, it's an instruction. Look, if you saw a tiger head come into my little square here, you'd all go, be scared. If you saw it was just a picture, You breathe out when everything's okay. You breathe in when you're scared. So breathing in sends the signal to the body, uh-oh. Breathing out sends the signal to the body, everything's okay. So if you just, I call it the ABRA breath, ABRA, Alan's breathing regulatory activity, or it's like abracadabra. It's the beginning of magic. That's how I think of it. So I call it the ABRA breath. It's as good a name as any, and it's as bad a name as any. But
So I guess kind of along your lines, I mean, if you're holding your breath in, that's also resistance in a way.
in a way, yeah, I couldn't disagree with that. But again, it's acknowledging what's happening. Because if you say, hey man, I'm stuck breathing in, yeah, you want to begin to take steps to let it out. It's what, panic is, taking a lot of breaths in and breathing very little out. That's the opposite. And that's what happens when we panic. We can't catch our breath because we take too much in. And it's a balance. What I tell people is there's one woman who says, take a deep breath. Now let it out. So she might be better to say inhale, because we think of taking a breath as taking it in, but it's both. It's both. So and that goes back to balance, being, everything that I say, trust me, the opposite is also true, which gives you you've just learned twice as much here because you can do the opposite. And you got two choices for every time you ever thought there was only one choice. So, any questions about the ABRA breath? I call breathing out a little bit more than you breathed in. Maybe you can picture there's one little birthday candle and you just blow it out. And if you do 2 or 3 of those and close your eyes, you're pretty well back at the eye of the storm. And you're in a place where I think it's probably alpha. I don't know. I don't measure things. But
We could dowse. We could dowse and see what level people are at. Yeah.
Okay. So I want to do something with dowsing. I'll do something with dowsing in just a moment. There's two things I want to do and still leave on time. Because I don't know where you are. Where I am, it's before dinner. So I guarantee you I won't keep you long.
We have about 30 more minutes.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to do something that'll take 15 seconds. And then I'll do something that takes 10 minutes. And then we'll have plenty of time for more questions or whatever. I have here 2 pieces of paper, pink and blue. It is my wish and my intention that I could make these so that I can't pull them apart. Okay. And we all know how powerful intention is, right? So we've got 17 people on the call. For the next 10 seconds, I would like you to intend that these 2 pieces of paper get stuck together. You ready? 1, 2, stuck together. 3, 4, 5, 6, stuck together. 7, all your intention. 8, 9, 10. You think they're stuck together? You can douse for it, or we could check. I'll let you know. Oh, look at that. They come right apart. So I'm going to do it a different way. I still have the same intention, but now I'm going to use a stapler. And in 1 second, the papers are stuck together. So to me, so my intention is 10 times more powerful than yours. And the reason is because I have a different method of manifestation. Intention by itself doesn't do anything. We want a method of manifestation to amplify the intention, to move our intention along, to give it whatever. Okay, so because when somebody says, well, it happens through intention. Well, there's nothing that doesn't. Someone says, well, how did you do that? Well, I did it through intention. Well, guess what? very little happens without intention, which means that if you say I did it through intention, you've narrowed it down to explaining everything that's ever happened since the beginning of time. So I like to know method of manifestation. In that way, I guess I'm technical. Now, if you have your dowsing tool or a dowsing tool, that's great. Okay. Because I want to help you get along better with your dowsing tool so that it'll give better results. When we get along better with the stuff that we deal with, then I don't know, we've all worked with other people. And if you say, I need your help, you ugly slob, you're not going to get as good at they're not going to work as hard for you, you know, as if you say, hey, can you help me with this? Or you're the person I need, something like that. Or you're a good friend. Can you help me? So we're going to make friends with our dowsing tools a little bit differently, a little bit more than you have in the past. And you may notice that after we do this, your dowsing may work better. You may find that it's not 89.7% of the rules, it's 92%. You may find that it's just more fun to douse and it seems to be a smoother experience. Would that be okay with everybody? Okay, nobody left, so that's good. So I'm going to do it in two ways. Okay, I'm going to do it using a method of manifestation that I call resonance tuner. It's an energy card. It's a device, and I'm going to apply it to the dowsing tool that I have that represents everybody's dowsing tool who's on this call. And as I do that, I'm going to instruct you and give you step-by-step instructions on how to do it for yourself. So you have two methods of manifestation. One that you get automatically, I call it 3 movies, and one that actually, by coincidence, is for sale. So I'll talk more about that in a minute. So hold your dowsing tool, and I want you to close your eyes if you'd like. You don't have to. And we're going to watch 3 short movies. The first movie is called The Dowser. And you see a person dowsing. You see them getting answers, asking questions, writing down results. And you see that their tool, whatever they're using, whether it's an L rod or a pendulum, whatever, is working really well. The answers are very clear, and that they're just having a good time. And it's fun to watch this person not having the struggles that you've had or are having now in your dowsing, assuming that none of us is perfect, so we may have some struggles. It seems like the person in this movie has eliminated a lot of those, overcome them, and enjoys it. And you can see just by the look on their face that they've enjoyed the benefits of this dowsing for a long time. And just watching it allows you to feel really good. Just to know that you can see somebody dowsing the way you'd like to, with all the confidence, with all the ease, with all the effectiveness. And then we're going to watch a movie that's exactly like the first movie. The only difference is instead of you watching somebody dowsing, now you're watching yourself. And you see yourself doing the dowsing that this other person was doing just a moment ago in that first movie. And you see yourself enjoying it. You see yourself getting answers that are clear, effective, useful, and fun. And it's fun to watch that movie, and it's fun to see yourself having a good time and having a productive time. And making it enjoyable. And the third movie is exactly the same as the second movie. The difference is now you're in the movie, you're acting in the movie. So instead of watching yourself, you're experiencing yourself. And you can feel what the pendulum or the L rods are doing. And you can feel what it's like. You know that you're giving off, people who are watching you are having a good time watching because you're having such a good time. And you can feel the results from the inside. You know the answers are right, not just in your hand, in the pendulum, but all the way through your body. And it feels really good. And you know that in this movie, you are enjoying dowsing and as productive a dowser as you've ever been. Even if you've been really, really good, this just adds another dimension of ease, of effectiveness, of enjoyment, of confidence, of fun. Whatever it seems that has been missing or lagging in your dowsing, that's what you notice is happening. And then when you're finished with the movie, you can open your eyes and you may feel that the dowsing tool that you're holding feels a little bit different. It may look a little bit different. And you may notice that as you dowse in the future, tonight, tomorrow, the next few days, you might find that it's a little bit more fun. You may find you do a little bit more of it. I worked with somebody's guitar, and you can actually change the sound of a musical instrument with this, with either either what you did or what I did with the tuner. And I asked him if he noticed the difference in how his guitar sounded. He said no, but he wouldn't stop playing it. When I told him to play it the first time, he played a few bars and then stopped. And now he said, I don't feel any difference. And he just kept playing. So you may not notice the difference, but you may. So that's 3 movies. You can do 3 movies with any activity that you do or any experience that you're dreading or that you want to perform better at. You can do it with, you can watch yourself golfing if you golf, or playing a musical instrument if you do that. The 3 movies. Number 1, watch somebody doing it really well. Number 2, watch yourself doing it really. You know what it looks like to watch somebody doing it really well, so you can watch yourself. And if you've seen yourself doing it, then that must mean that you've done it, so you can experience that by putting yourself in the movie.
Very cool. I guess we could have done a dowsing thing and seen what our average accuracy was, and then seeing, what the accuracy is now. So that would be kind of fun.
That's true. And you can do that with anything else. Usually what I do with the tuner is we'll work with money. And I do muscle testing. That's the way I first learned how to dowse, was muscle testing. And which somebody told me was a great way to dowse. And other people say, well, that's not dowsing. So if you talk to somebody and you get wrong answers, just talk to somebody else. You'll get the answers that you want from them. So what'll happen is people will hold a $1 bill or $100 bill and their arm will go weak. And then we'll tune it. I'll hold this over the money, and then they hold the money and they hold strong. So cell phones work the same way. Golf clubs will work the same way. Anything that we come in contact with will work the same way. Even parts of ourselves, we can do that. So I'm going to do a very, very short commercial for the tuner. You've already received the benefit because we've tuned everybody's dowsing tool. So it's not as big an infomercial as I'm afraid that I would do. I was at the Southwest conference West Coast conference several years ago, and they tell you that you cannot do a presentation around the product. So the last day, I had some tuners, different forms lined up in the front of the classroom, and the director of the conference walks in and sits down, and she's going to be in my class. So I took 3 steps to the side, and I said, I know we can't do a presentation around a product for sale. I said, but I'm doing my presentation next to a product for sale. It's not around it, it's next to it. Luckily, she laughed and I just went on. So I find that, again, when I work with clients, we get rid of the inner conflict. We resolve the inner conflict. So you turn your inner enemy into your inner ally. This is a way, again, using energetically to release the interference between you and something else. So once you adjust so that and to me, it's bringing it in resonance. And if you take 2 guitar strings and you play the note, if they're a little bit out of tune, if you tune them up together, then everything gets a lot louder. So you have much more power when you're not fighting the energies around you, but you're more in tune with them. So, and it's the same thing. I believe that the tuner acts like an antenna on a radio. If the music is not clear, you can adjust the antenna. The antenna doesn't change the signal coming in, and it doesn't change the radio itself. It's changing the relationship between the two. So it's just another way of changing the relationship. I've shown you a few ways that you can do that. You can go to the eye of the storm and bring in whatever it is that you want to get along better with, and just hang out in the eye of the storm. You can breathe into it. You can use the abra breath and breathing into the pain together. It's pretty much the same activity. So if you're intrigued by the tuner, that's great. If you want to do more, I'm planning on doing a workshop by Zoom on Saturday, June 11th. Is it okay to mention this, Mary?
Yeah, no, perfect timing. Yes. So Alan,
Okay.
because we had talked a little bit about this stuff, talked about creating a workshop on, helping us. All right. Tell me the name of it.
The name,
it has
you'll
a
love
super
it.
sexy name.
It does. And it's funny because it was my hypnosis teacher who said that most people come to get rid of one of the 2 ugly ants, romance or finance. And so I've expanded that a little bit. The title rhymes in the South, so you'll like it. It's romance, finance, and resonance. In the North, it's romance, finance, and resonance. So, and it's learning how to get along better with things and with people and with money and with your dowsing tools and whatever it is. And did I say yourself? That's probably the most important thing. So I want to do a workshop. I do this when I go to conferences very often. It's not the only workshop that I do, but it's a lot of fun. And I did it in Flagstaff last year when we first got together, and it's a 3-hour workshop. I charge $75 for the workshop, and everybody gets a tuner, which is really nice. what I'd like to do is offer a discount. Instead of 75, we'll make it $60 for the 3 hours. It's on June 11th. It's a Saturday. It's 9 o'clock my time, which will be 11 o'clock your time.
So 11 a.m. Central to, is that 2 o'clock? Mhm.
Yeah, 11 to 2. And what I'm asking is, if you are interested to sign up, you have my contact information because it was in the email that had the link.
Right.
Okay. So if you contact me, I would like to get everybody signed up by June 1st so I can get tuners to you. So I can get your tuner, because the $60 includes a residence tuner. The residence tuner itself costs $50. So for $60, you can have the workshop and the tuner. And all you have to do is give me a call or a text or an email and let me know that you're interested, and we'll make it happen.
All right. Stacy's sending celebration emojis. That's awesome.
Oh,
Thanks.
good. Okay.
Okay. So just to be clear, now your resonance tuner, the card that you're showing, that's a tool that helps you get into resonance more quickly with whatever it is that you're desiring, right?
Right.
Okay. Let's see, there's a question. Is there a way to participate if I'm going to be out of town? Well, it's going to be on Zoom, right?
Yeah.
So you can participate from anywhere, the comfort of your home or your hotel or
Yeah. The place is
wherever you
not as
are.
the place is not as important as setting aside the time. So if you if you're going to be out of town, we will be on the road. Yeah, that could be a problem. Well,
I guess you can record it. It maybe isn't quite the same as having the advantage to ask questions and participate.
yeah, I'll probably record it if I remember to do that. And if a lot of it'll be, I'll record it and probably make it available. So there'll be a way to do that. Also, what you can do, and this is kind of sneaky, you can get a tuner for $50, save $10, and then call me up and say, how do I use this? And and I'll answer questions. So you can do that as well. I don't mind doing that. I love talking about it and helping people. So so there's a way that we can get you up to speed. Okay. So the best thing is either to call me or text or contact me through you can contact me through the website, I guess, as well.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, I think we had your email in there, and it'll definitely go out with our with the recording, and just remind people of your workshop so that they can sign up. Yeah, we have a few people that are excited that they'll be able to do the replay. Yeah, I think the benefit of doing the workshop is, having that firsthand experiential, being able to experience it and ask questions, right?
yeah, you can direct the workshop. You can ask questions and get answers to your specific questions. So that's a real reason to do your best to attend the workshop when it's given.
Okay, so let's see, you're going to be improving our love life and our money situation with this workshop, right?
There was one woman who took the workshop, and she like within 2 weeks, I think she was engaged. So
Wow.
who knows?
Who knows?
Nobody that I I don't
one's
think
ever-
anybody who would win the lottery would tell me that, because I probably wouldn't want to date the guy that she's engaged to, but I'd want some of the money if they got, I would ask for 1% if anybody wins the lottery. But yeah, so
Are you in resonance with that, Alan?
absolutely. Let's douse for that. Oh,
Yeah.
it's funny. I was going to say, in dowsing, it's very important to ask the right question. And I have tuners. If you go to resonancetuner.com, you can see some of the other forms that they come in. But I would be, this was in whatever the dowsing conference was, and I have all my products out for sale. And somebody says, I don't know if I want one. And I say, the right question is very important. Don't ask, will this be helpful? Ask, how many of each? So that's the important question. Anyway, so it's
Yeah,
sort
I
of
guess
a,
we get to douse to see how beneficial this will be, how life-changing it could be.
there was a guy that I sat next to at the at ORI one time at the Power of Thought School, and his name was Bill Russell, great guy, and he did sort of radionics, and he had some copper bracelets. So one woman comes and she douses that it would be 60% beneficial for this copper bracelet that Bill was selling. So I said, well, tune it. And we took a tuner and we held it over the bracelet for a minute. And she came and dowsed again, and it said it's 100% beneficial. So when people say, is dowsing as good as radionics? I say it's 40% better. So the idea for me is, I'm not saying that everybody needs one or anybody needs one, but it's the same thing as far as the dowsing tool. Most dowsers will tell you you don't need the pendulum or the dowsing tool, but it's more fun. It sort of amplifies the results a little bit, and it's just nicer to have than not to have. So I feel that way about the tuner. But it's finding the method of manifestation that will easily and quickly and effectively make your intention into a reality. So it's just another, all of these things, the eye of
It's
the
an
storm.
Allen hack.
It's an Allen hack, a method of manifestation. That's right. MOM, method of manifestation. Think of it as mom.
I liked it. I thought that was a very graphic image of the two pieces of paper with the intention, and then I think the key part was that you took the action, right? You took an action to staple it, and
You gotta do something. Yeah,
right.
exactly.
So we have to have the intention and the action piece.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's the old joke about the guy who, if you want to be a boxer, you got to want to be a boxer. So the guy wanted to be a boxer, and he wanted to be a boxer, and he gets in a ring with a guy who really wanted to be a boxer. So he took different actions. So yeah, it's I like to have some hacks. I like things to do. What do I do? And there are so many people who, one of my favorite hobbies is to listen when people don't answer the question. In other words, when will you come and pick me up? Well, I have to go to the cleaners and I have to drop off, and all I need is a number, 6 o'clock or 12 o'clock or something. All I need is a number. That's not answering my question. So to make it bottom line is, when I work with a part of you who's causing your problem, like when I work in the office or over the phone, the first question I ask that part, I make it bottom line, and I say, what do you want? And that's, to me, that's very effective, because you're working together. And if you say, why are you doing this to this person, you're going to get some made up answers, because why put somebody on the defensive?
Mm-hmm.
But what do you want? I had a boss, I had a sales job, and I was doing predictably poorly. And he called me in his office. I thought he was going to fire me. And he says, Alan, and I'm ready to, clear out my desk. He says, what can we do to make you happy? Wow. I had no clue. Nobody had ever asked me that. Women never asked. Nobody ever asked me that. So, which is why I do the workshop on romance and finance. So I had no idea how to answer the question, but I never forgot how I was treated. What can we do to make you happy? How do you not like that person? How do you not want to help each other at that point? So that's the idea.
Like that. Yeah. So finding, what you're in resonance and what you're in resistance to. So yeah, that's great. Thank you. Molly says, I truly appreciate the hands-on approach provided tonight. Thank you. Very helpful.
Thank you, Molly.
Yeah. Stacy loves the live interaction. Yes, we're getting lots of little kudos here in our chat. So anyhow, well, we are needing to wrap up. Has anybody got a question for Alan before we close? Guess you're going to have to unmute yourself if you do. So, okay. I am not seeing anything. I think you've given everybody some really great tools and information to work with. So this was great. Thank you so much. We have got it recorded and we'll send out the recording to everybody. So thank you so much, Alan. And I'm encouraging everybody to sign up for his workshop, because I think that who doesn't want more resonance with romance and finance? So, yeah.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
the way I describe it, it's people, it's things, and it's ourselves. So those are we got everything covered pretty much.
Yeah, sounds great.
Great.
Stacy's looking forward to the workshop. All right. Well, thank you so much, Alan. And thanks everybody for joining us. And we will see you next time.
Thanks a lot.